The real possibility. I haven't done one of these in a while. A marriage lesson of what not to do. I am married, so far, for 12 years and we have 3 children under the age of 12. Our marriage has been less than happy for at least the last 5 years, from my perspective, maybe longer from hers. In that time neither of us had the insight to try and sit down with the other and try and talk or figure things out. Seems like that might have been helpful early on. My main complaint is the lack of bonding for 4, going on 5 years. That is complete lack of bonding between my wife and myself in that time. Recently, at the beginning of 2019, I discovered my wife cheating on me. According to her, it had been going on only about 2 or 3 months. Seemingly the start of it was non-memorable enough that she can't pin down the time frame as to it starting 1 or 2 months before it was discovered. Frankly, I mostly don't care when or how long other than my general need for precision. Assuming she is not lying, no comments necessary on the acronym of assume. This is the only affair, and by that time in the marriage an affair is almost a formality. The odd thing is that our situation isn't that bad. We are both genial people whom others like and would be shocked to discover aren't experiencing marital bliss. Many seem to see ours as an example of a wonderful marriage. She is impatient and can be committed to getting her own way. I tend to have a northern sense of an argument not involving the raising of voices but rather outright yelling, and I tend to have less filter than many people in the South appreciate. We married when she was early 30s and I early 40s. After child 3 she seems to have made the unilateral decision that was enough. Being practicing Catholics, that means relying on NFP, which does work but requires work to ensure it does work. She never did and never tried to do that work. I took a while to fully realize, accept that her decision to have no more children was a decision to stop all bonding without explanation, pity or attempt to mitigate by trying to stick to the NFP routine. She had been baptized Catholic and fully joined while we were dating. I never pressured her and was somewhat surprised when she brought up going through the process of becoming Catholic. She knew I was committed to not using artificial birth control in our marriage and at one point said that she liked not having to be on the pill because it messed with her body. Of course, all this was when she wanted to be married and have children. So, at this point we are sort of in a hold pattern where we are working on being more courteous with one another and periodically cuddling and being closer, although she has zero current intent of physical activity with me. I also should say that after learning of the affair I did some soul searching and realized that I had never fully allowed myself to be in love with her. Likewise, she had never allowed herself to fall in love with me. We both loved one another, in part because neither demanded of the other to be fully let into that walled-off part of the other's heart. Earlier in life I came to the conclusion that one actually makes a conscious decision to fall in love, to allow the walls to come down, just as one consciously keeps the walls in place to protect themselves. After the affair came to my attention, I took several days to figure out if I was actually in love with her. The fact that I had to do that is telling of our relationship. I finally decided that yes, I think I do love her. From there I decided, partly because I had little to lose, that I would let myself fall in love with her. Stupid, yes, but in a way necessary. That decision, rather than weakening me and putting me in a position of haplessly filling her needs and empowering her to run the show, has had an immense internal effect on me. I have little doubt that she thinks herself in charge and happily avoiding any retribution for her behavior. However, her behavior is her own and the consequences of it are and will be mostly internal. Maybe she will proceed blindly on and uncaringly indulge her whims and fantasies, at least as long as age and physical capability allow. Maybe she will come to realize that there is not need behind my staying and caring. Who knows, and to some extent who cares? The decision has provided me immense internal joy, not necessarily happiness. I am a person who has often said it is hate which keeps you strong. Love may be patient and kind, but it can't provide the kind of white-hot rage that will get you up off the ground when everything in you says to stay down. But anger is a tiring burden after a long enough portion of life. Somewhere she is holding a grudge. One doesn't stay married and forego bonding for 4 or 5 years with the person they married and have children with without there being some level of maintained anger or hate. I have not yet forgiven her those 4+ years, but I will come to that point. The affair lingers, but I have mostly forgiven, other than if I dwell on the attitude she puts out there of not seeing it as in any way personal towards me. I guess my main reason for coming here is to try and get some insight into what makes a woman, particularly a mother of younger children, have an affair and incur the risks to those children. I may end up becoming glad I came here because I figure out other things too, but that's my main reason right now. Am I at all angry or resentful inside? Of course, it's natural, who wouldn't be, if I let emotion rule me. At the same time, I'm an adult, so I choose not to let emotion rules me. There's a difference. Recognizing things doesn't make them go away, neither does divorce or separation. I choose my thoughts and actions, and as time goes on those choices become easier because each choice leads in only one of 2 directions, destruction or repair. My marriage needs repair but requires 2 to do that. I can only control one of those 2. I have been down the path of self-destruction in the past. Part of why she and I are where we are today is the fruits of past behavioral patterns. Drowning myself in vengeance, anger, and evening the score was the first, most attractive option until I stopped letting emotion rule me. No part of life is easy. I'm healthy, I'm fit and active, I don't look my age or move my age. I have 3 kids, I didn't have them before I married her. I choose to view that as an unalterable objective good. 12 years of marriage didn't go bad overnight, nor will its effects change overnight. I can accept that. There is an end game. Maybe there is divorce, maybe reconciliation. I hope for reconciliation but actually expect divorce. The end game remains the same, and not pursuing that sure as hell doesn't up the odds of a good outcome for the marriage or the kids, so I don't see a downside. Is it momentarily exhausting at times or infuriating? Yeah, I'm not a robot, those will flare up, but so what? I took vows. I intended those vows to be serious, they are. Till death, better, worse, sickness, health. Didn't say anything about number of years, didn't guarantee bliss or even happiness. I didn't take them in my 20s or even my 30s. I didn't take them with my eyes closed or without seeing friends' marriages fall apart. I didn't take any vows with my kids, does anyone? Do people on here advise others to disown children, leave them, etc. because with the kids there were never any vows? So why is it imaginable to bail on the one and only lifelong promise I willingly made? It was never a bilateral agreement of if, then or as long as you, then I will. She chooses to view that in a less serious way. I'm sorry for her. Shall I sink to her level? Will that make me feel better? Will that help our children have better lives? We don't have open warfare, we're cordial. The kids are starting to notice that mom doesn't really find time for them except when they fit into her plans or time frame. I guess she's winning, huh? I played soccer today, at 54 years old. She outweighs me by 50 pounds, that must feel wonderful, huh? I wish I could shake her and wake her up, but she chooses to sleep. I know I can go out and get laid on any given day. I know I can allow an emotional relationship to develop with one or more of the moms at the kids' school or any of a number of other places. I know guilt is a tool meant to bump us back onto the right path. I know conscience can be buried. For a while, why would I want to go to any of those places? Why would I want to drag anyone to one of those places with me? She slept with a married guy, I'm sure she feels wonderful about that. I know she didn't get married with the intent of doing that or having the end game she seems intent on achieving. I'm not getting dragged down by all of it anymore. My reaction to the affair was a wake-up call, thank God. I have a lot of work I can do on myself. Being involved with her doesn't pull me away from that. If anything, it reminds me that working on myself is a lifelong challenge and that the biggest effect I can have on anyone else is simply being as good as I can be. My limits are my strength. Her life is chaos precisely because she made a choice to abandon her limits and continues to avoid thinking about reimposing them. It's not being a doormat anymore, not doing things to avoid arguing or resentment or doing things to spur an argument or poke her resentment. In her story, she had the affair because she's unhappy, in some vague way, and because I'm always angry. We see each other in the morning as I'm dragging the kids out of bed to go to school, and when she gets home from work and I've dealt with the kids' pent-up energy after school and I'm doing my favorite activity, cooking. So, my always angry is those 2 most stressful points in the day. That's what she chooses to focus on, not the fact that she doesn't have to stay home with the kids, which she has always openly admitted would drive her nuts, or the loneliness of before marriage, etc. The more I'm stepping away from my own resentments with her and my own issues with the marriage, the happier I am, and the more I see where she is really. She seems mired down in her resentment and unhappiness, which, if she's honest, have really very little to do with me and much more to do with her own expectations. She's doing very well at work, however. They painted a picture for her and supposedly had bright plans for her to glide to upper management. I have done what a good spouse does to help her career, including 3 moves, all with kids 2 or under. I began to resent that after I found out about the affair, and there's no excuse for an affair, because I thought we were a team. A dysfunctional team to be sure, but a team. The odd thing is that as those promises haven't panned out at work, though she makes very good money and gets good raises and bonuses, her resentment toward me has grown. That grew even greater resentment in me at first, and I stoked it well for a while. The thing is, resentment did me no good. She still resents me for it, probably also the kids. So, I could say I'm done. I have tried shouting at her what the real issue is, but since she has seen the solution to everything as putting more into work, there is no other answer in her mind. So, the thing that has really caused the feelings of resentment is seen as the key to solving the resentment. And after a time, I go back to the wedding vows, sickness and health. Is it a mental illness? No, not really, but in a way, it resembles one. So, she's sick. That's not an excuse, because she's also refusing to help herself. But it is sickness. It is also frustrating because I do not know what to do to ease the symptoms, which at bottom is a specific type of pain. Now, if she were physically ill and I could do nothing, a sort of chronic but not terminal illness or pain, would it be acceptable to divorce her or walk away? Would people be advising that this isn't what I signed on for, so cut my losses and go? Doubtful. If you don't think it's a sickness, you need to look around. Why are so many marriages falling apart? Why are so many people deeply unhappy yet surrounded by so much of what they think they want? How do you walk away from that when it's what you see in the person you married? There are reasons I didn't get married until I was in my 40s, and they're almost exclusively centered around my needs, so I lived that, and then I continued it to a lesser degree into my marriage, and it worked out pretty much as should be expected. So, I'm happy to be trying something different. I've cut losses before. I'm not a huge C.S. Lewis fan. I like him okay, but he does have a good observation, and here it is. There is no safe investment. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will certainly be wrung and possibly be broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give your heart to no one, not even to an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken, it will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. The alternative to tragedy, or at least to the risk of tragedy, is damnation. The only place outside heaven where you can be perfectly safe from all the dangers and perturbations of love is hell. I am not the one in need of STD testing. If the day comes where my wife and I are possibly physical again, I will ensure she gets herself tested. I did bring it up to her, but she is sure that he doesn't have anything and they used condoms. I mean, he's married, right? I'm sure he's never done anything like this before. My comment: you give excuse after excuse as to why you are there, but what it boils down to is that you are weak. What you are doing is not an example of strength, it is sheer weakness, and it sets a terrible example of marriage for your kids. Maybe your marriage would not have been non-physical all these years if you would have released your death grip on your religion and allowed use of some damn birth control. Your wife was perfectly within her right to decide she did not want to bear more children, and you should have supported that and done what you could to make sure no more came along. I can't stand it when people blindly follow religion to their own detriment. What happens is where you find yourself now. I am not excusing her affair, she should have ended the marriage instead. I have zero doubt she used some kind of birth control with her affair partner. You should be enacting consequences for what she has done, not cuddling on the couch with her, kissing her ass. She is going to keep doing this because you are allowing it. OP responds a few months later. My wedding anniversary, 13 years, is coming up in a few days. In January it will be a year since D-Day of her affair with someone at work. We did a little work on reconciling, but I was having to initiate that and finally told her that it would be up to her to initiate and that I would be ready when, if she did. Since then, work on us has stopped where it was at, but I have continued working on me. Part of me doesn't care who it was or really about the details, but part of me does want to know some of it. I know that I do want to know who it was with, mainly because she has refused to tell me. That speaks of a disrespect as deep as the affair to me. At the same time, we have kids, we are not at war. Basically, just roommates as we have been for years, so the kids aren't traumatized by arguments or anger. After discovering the affair, she made the comment that it wasn't about me, as in she didn't have the affair to get at me. Certainly, on the surface I accept that, though deep underneath, given that we were married, it is also certainly about me. But, for my purposes now, accept that it was not about me. It was something she needed. So now, a part of me needs to know who the affair was with. In my mind I am sometimes telling myself that my finding this out is not about her. My previous career involved analysis, investigation, so I know there are ways to find out. They would not be low-profile ways, and given that she carried on an affair at work, my finding out would possibly impact her career. I know coworkers of hers and could go that route blatantly. From my standpoint, I don't have any reason to hide the affair given she has made no moves toward reconciliation or toward leaving. The other route is to contact her company's ethics line. An affair with a co-worker of equal level would be against the company ethics standards. An affair with a contractor where she has said in which contractor they use would be a bigger deal. My suspicion is it was with a contractor because since the supposed start of the affair she has regularly brought home all sorts of minor things like shirts, hats, etc. from a single contractor and has gone to dinner with that contractor's project manager, and with no others. I go back and forth between A, it doesn't matter as far as ever knowing, mainly I do feel it's mostly a petty need to feel like I at least got that from her, and B, I want to know just because I think I can find out despite her not being forthcoming. She had a work affair partly because she put work ahead of family. She likes to go on about how unfair work is for her as a woman, yet she pursued an affair just as she would characterize a privileged man doing. I know that part of me would like to simply shrug my shoulders after an investigation resulting in some kind of disciplinary action by her work and say that it wasn't about her, so she should just get over it. And if you are going to warn me about her losing her job and the economics of it, I assure you I can withstand the economic hardship better than her, and frankly a little period of hard times would likely be the best thing for our kids in the long run. They are nice kids but incredibly spoiled from my perspective of growing up with Depression-era parents. Aside from that, does it seem like the right thing, or even only justifiable? This isn't a constant thought, but it does come up in my mind if I dwell on things. Given the wedding anniversary and the fact that she supposedly started the affair around Thanksgiving last year, I am doing more dwelling than I did across the summer. Do you have kids? What exactly does man up mean when you have kids? Seen enough results of adults who can't handle their own business and cut and run because they deserve something more. Sorry, when I check out, I don't want that on my bill. This isn't their mess to clean up. We're not at war, no arguments, not much of anything, so it's not ideal for the kids, but in my judgment as one of their parents, it's better than switching houses every week and witnessing a regular parade of uncles or friends spending the night. Is manning up in any way associated with honoring a commitment? Because my wedding vow was not bilateral or conditional except to stay regardless of circumstance. I know that a lot of people get a rush from having stuff and accomplishing this or that at work, and I like all that well enough, but at my core there are only a couple of things that matter. Manning up to appear to be strong or in control isn't one of them. How do you regain respect from someone who has demonstrated that they have so little for themselves? Unless infidelity is some sort of badge of honor, why is her respect important at this point? If you are talking about turning a marriage into a power play, the type of respect you're talking about would be worth pursuing, albeit the resulting marriage might not be. She has also clearly demonstrated her preference for a stronger mate. No. I suppose at one time it was me, because I'm attractive in shape and don't play games. That version of strength has apparently passed and she has moved up to the AP, a married man. Gee, maybe I should have an affair myself, that way she will see me as strong. Or, the manner of acting out on her side actually betrays a bit about what she feels she really deserves. Could be a pattern, since her father has consistently told me he was glad when she brought me over because the guys she had dated were losers, and I mean real losers. I've also met several of the ex-BFs. I have not met the affair partner's wife. It would be interesting as to whether she finds her husband to be weak or strong. Would it match my wife's perception, I wonder? As to my wedding vows, they have meant more than something and continue to. Her wedding vows are the ones that are questionable at best. But she is the strong player, correct? In other words, to compete in her game I have to rise to the top through compromise of my own values so that we can be equals. Does that sound about right? Damn, I should have gone with my initial impulse when I found out about the affair. What a weak loser I am. I should have 180 her across the face. I could blackmail her with the ethics line and get laid for a few months. That would get me some respect. Look, I get your perspective. It's just not mine. My brother passed in 2014. He lived a pretty wild life, was an alcoholic. Longtime GF who he married was on meds and had him arrested among many of their adventures. The only thing I respected about him most of his life was that at least he rode his train all the way down for years and didn't ask for a bailout from mom and dad. Even after he cleaned himself up, because they had a kid, I didn't think much of him. After they figured out what type of cancer he had, they told him he had under 25% chance of making it with treatment. But they told him that if he underwent treatment that they would learn a lot because his was a rare cancer, and the longer he kept it up the more they would learn. He knew fairly early and that the treatments weren't doing it. He kept going with it though because he did want to help the research. I don't know his motivation, I can guess at it. I do know that he rode that train all the way down too. He couldn't swallow toward the end. He did finally stop the treatments at the end. He could have had a more comfortable though shorter time focusing on himself and cutting out treatment earlier. But he didn't. That's weak, by most people's reasoning. But it's the only way he left this world with more respect and meaning than he would have by not doing it. There are reasons and meanings beyond us. Sometimes we bury the importance of those until we face our own mortality. I know what's important to me, and in a way it sucks knowing it, but that doesn't obscure the knowledge. I didn't ask for advice on how to win a power struggle. I can clearly witness the happiness and closure that the 180 type activity results in, not just here but among real-world friends and acquaintances. I liked the movie Rambo when it came out and I was young. I'm not young and I have an appreciation for the type of dormant manhood exhibited in Hacksaw Ridge these days. When I total up my credits and debits at the end of my life, I don't think that the common definitions of manhood will comfort me much. I am aware that my wife did not keep her vows. Those are vows she made voluntarily, in fact eagerly. We dated 3 years before we were married, so I'm pretty sure she had an idea of how I manned up or didn't. I have considered removing myself from the situation and it doesn't work for me. I'm not being actively abused. I actually enjoy my life overall. Infidelity is jarring in the immediate sense and disconcerting in the long range, but marriage has brought me good things too. It could be better, much better, but leaving the marriage would not put me in a better situation in many ways, including living my own values. She's not leaving either. Why? I don't know. Maybe she enjoys living with me because I'm such a charmer. She could leave any time. There's a cost to anything unhealthy, spiritually, mentally, physically, or emotionally. For all the affair seems to have offered her at bottom, it's an objectively bad thing and there are reasons behind it. I don't know what those reasons are, but I can say that I am not a valid one. She may blame me, I don't know for what, because she has never articulated any blame commensurate to having an affair. She cut off bonding. I survived without an affair, she couldn't. Cutting off bonding was her revenge, resentment for something. It backfired on her. If it were just her and I, maybe she'd feel particularly good sleeping with someone else. We have kids, she cares about them, but her needs jeopardize their relationship. She will go on about male privilege, thinks Trump is a pig. And yet, she has become the monster she despises. Does that feel good, do you think? I can drive and drive with vengeance and push her to a place where she becomes incapable of seeing her position in light of her own values. That doesn't seem like a good outcome. You can soak in enough bitterness that you no longer are capable of washing it off. The ideal is change. Not change in a power structure, change in a marriage. Maybe it never comes. I certainly can't force that kind of change. I might be able to make her change on a shallow level. Get respect from holding something over her head, but that's a lot of work. Anger and revenge are tiring. I have anger when I let myself focus on how I've been wronged and think about the ways I can make her pay. I don't have so much when I look at myself and think of where I want to be as a person. I'm noticing it's a lot less tiring to focus on trying to live my life the way I want to be. I would not set myself on fire to keep her warm, nor would I blow out a fire to watch her freeze. If she was freezing and I had the power to build a fire to warm her, would I have no obligation to do so? She cheated on me. She also gave me children. I'm not easy with the idea of revenge. It always sounds better than it turns out. By sorting through the advice here, it became obvious to me that my main reason to consider finding out who it was, particularly via an ethics line call, was revenge. So, I do take in the advice here. It's very telling and offers its own guidance. My family and her family are grudge holders. It's a terrible way to live, damaging yourself to get back at someone. I've always recognized that, but it's tempting sometimes despite knowing. But look around the world, both close in and far away. Where is anyone winning by holding a grudge? The DNA test was a thought. It was weird in that as I thought about it, I realized that no matter what that test would say, they'd be my kids, and given that I would never want to treat them different subconsciously by knowing something, it would also kind of feel like I was testing them, not her. If that makes any sense. I have been attempting meditation for about 5 months. My biggest problem now is that I end up falling asleep at times, but that's not a bad thing. One helpful thing was learning that when my mind drifts, I don't have to get into that thing of chasing it back and then trying to hold on to it so it doesn't wander again. Apparently, it's fine to let it wander and then sort of gently bring it back. Most recently, I have been focusing on steering the wandering away from running through solution-type scenarios or worrying about what I have to do next. My comment, Opus, you ask for thoughts and then get snarky and lash out. Good strategy, aimed at the right people, it will solve your problems. Your wife, on the other hand, refuses to tell you who the affair partner is. Could still be ongoing. She has shown no remorse at all. First time she was caught. And you're accepting of all this behavior of hers because of your vows. Unconditionally loving someone is foolish. One of my conditions is that my wife doesn't bang other dudes. It's one of the little rules I have. If you DNA the kids and find out one or more are not yours, would that change anything?